I would like to call our regular monthly board meeting to order. Welcome everyone here tonight. Thanks for coming out. If you would, please join me in a moment of silence. Thanks. This time, would you join us for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, before Dr. Gainey starts his comments, I know last time somebody were here, we were talking about a resolution and from this board, and we did send it out. It went about everywhere we could send it, I think. But we didn't really get a whole lot of, I don't think we really got any results back that I know of. Hopefully, maybe a couple ideas. I know the quarantine's down to 5 days. I don't know, maybe something come out of it, some ideas, I don't know, but we got it in some pretty important hands, but we never heard nothing back. So this time, Dr. Gainey, share some comments.
Thank you, Mr. Cook and board members. I want to just share a couple of things. First, I want to take a moment and thank the county commissioners, our county manager, Hal Johnson, and County Finance Officer Will Massey and staff who came over today. We had a work session today and talked about our budget request for 22-23. That is our local budget request, and just want to say a big thank you to them for always making time to answer our questions, and especially this annual meeting. I've enjoyed working with them over the past 102 months, I guess it is now, looking back over the years, and that's always an exciting day to have everybody at the table talking about in advance where we're going to be in May when the formal presentation's made at the courthouse. I also want to just note a couple of things that have happened the last month. I've had a chance to attend a bunch of concerts throughout the school system, and very excited to see those concerts back in schedules. Winter Band and Chorus concert at Roy Ridge. Went to see that concert on the 14th of December. I want to say a big congratulations to the students and Angel Freeland, the band director, and Faith Ingold, the chorus teacher. Great performance. The next night on the 15th, I had a chance to go to Northeastern Randolph Middle School and to the Winter Band concert. I want to congratulate John Walker, the director, and his students for a great performance. And then my concerts ended on the 16th of December, Winter Band concert at Randleman High School. Kyla Bartron is the new band director there. The kids did a great job there. And we just getting back in school last week. Last week was a very quick week, and this is a very quick month because with the board meeting coming so early. But on Thursday, I got to do something really neat I've not done in the past. I saw it right before the break at Southwestern Randolph Middle School when I was visiting. They were doing book conferences. And so I was talking to Miss Ashley Moody, a 7th grade language arts teacher, and Christy Embry, the media specialist there, about what they were doing. And they have these book conferences, and they meet with the kids one-on-one, and the children tell what they've been reading and what's going on in the book they've been reading, and how many pages they've read and all this, and then you get an opportunity to start talking to the kids about school and different things, and just really had a great time. They invited me last Thursday, and I got to meet with 3 different students in the library, and had a great time just talking to them about their thoughts about school and their interests. I just want to say a big thank you to Miss Moody and Miss Embry for inviting me to be a part of that on Thursday. I want to also note that January is School Board Appreciation Month, and I want to give all our board members a big thank you for your efforts to help lead this school system every day. I want to personally thank you for your guidance and advice and teamwork with my staff and me. Numerous conversations on phones over each week, just different things that come up, and just appreciate that. Many of you I've worked with a long time now. It's a pleasure to work with you every day as superintendent and what I consider to be a great community and a great school system. I want to say a big thank you also, I mentioned this in the work session, to Tara Aker, Director of Randolph County Public Health. We've been working through a lot of things with what we deal with dealing with the contact tracing and all, and Tara was very instrumental in us being able to try an option We tried last week, and then spent a lot of time with me on the phone, providing guidance, and just want to say a big thank you to her. As I said today, been a great teammate, as was the previous health director, Susan Hayes, and we're just, make no mistake about this, this is just been a tough task for everyone. And we're all trying, as I told a parent today, we were just talking about some things she called about, and I said, you know, what I can assure you is everybody trying to do the best we can. We're doing the best we can with what's going on. And finally, I want to say a big congratulations to Eastern Randolph High School. For anybody who was at the board meeting, last board meeting, I think it was when we did Kathy was the last board meeting, we did the Lighthouse recommendation. Lighthouse School Award is a big award for the North Carolina Association of Supervision and Curriculum Development. And I want to say congratulations to not only Dr. Susan Chappell, but to our students, our staff members, and that the members of the community. They're very proud of that school and always have been. And enjoy going into the community, and especially at different events, because the level of pride at all our schools is high, and it's especially high at Eastern Randolph. But they were selected, as my understanding, as one of 2 lighthouse schools in North Carolina. And so Eastern Randolph will be recognized at the Carolina Hotel in Pinehurst. And I think, Kathy, it's the annual North Carolina Association of Supervision and Curriculum Development Conference. I think this is their annual one, and but it is be on the 4th of February. So very excited for Dr. Chappell and for her students, her staff, and the community for that recognition at Eastern Randolph High School. So this concludes my comments, Mr. Chair.
Thanks, Dr. Gaines. At this time, I need a motion to approve the December 13th, 2021 minutes.
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, at this time, we're going to move on to the public comments, and Kurt Bowman.
Good afternoon and happy New Year. I guess you kind of touched on one of my questions, and that was on whatever came about last week. And then the only other thing that I had a question on was in the last paragraph of the face covering policy, it makes mention to the superintendent having the authorization to return to a mask mandate. And I just, it's not really a question, but maybe a suggestion that falls on the elected officials, not the superintendent. That's the only thing I have to say. I appreciate you guys. Happy New Year.
Thank you. Okay, is it Leslie Durham? Okay.
Hey, I am just trying to figure out the best way of communication, I guess, with the board as a whole. I'm not really sure. I find a lot of frustration with I don't find, I try to communicate via email. I don't get a response. I was here last week. I try to come very frequently now to understand the process and how I can help my children be successful in school. And I guess I'm struggling with what method of communication would be best. I heard that you spoke to a parent on the telephone. I don't know if that's the best way to go about communication. I did get an email back from Fred when I was, had sent out an email to everyone after the last meeting. Standing up here, listening to y'all kind of discuss what's going on in the schools and how the schools handling the contact tracing and things like that is very different. Y'all's explanation for it is very different than what I'm experiencing as a parent. So I want to give and help in any way that I can. I feel like I have a lot of knowledge when it comes to all this because I am a frontline person in the emergency department. So I want to help. I want to tell you what I'm experiencing as a parent because, like I spoke with Fred, there's things that make absolutely no sense. Like My daughter we're a family of 6, we have 4 children, and me and my husband all work in the medical field. My husband and I both work in the medical field, and my oldest daughter can be kept home from school because of exposure in the classroom. My younger daughter, who one's in kindergarten, one's in 2nd grade, doesn't have the same exposure, but they live together. They're less than 2 years apart. They drink after each other. They do all that fun stuff together that they do. And one of my children can go to school, and one of my children is kept at home. I don't understand that. I know that that's the policy, but there's a lot of things that I heard y'all questioning one another about that y'all weren't aware of, and so I'm asking as a parent how we can help you, because I don't feel like I have the ability to help y'all. I don't know that y'all want our help, but as a parent, from that standpoint, I want to be able to help with knowledge that I have that y'all were clearly questioning one another on and didn't have. So I guess I would like a follow-up maybe to that email that I sent last time as to how I can reach out to y'all and communicate with y'all. Thank you.
Thank you. If you could resend that email, I'm not sure
Not sure I got
that I got, I mean, honestly, I try to respond to most of mine, but I could have certainly missed it, and I mean, I'm sure that Dr. Gainey would be willing to talk on the phone or something. If you call and ask Beverly for him to give you a call back, he'd give you a call back, and I certainly agree with you on there's a lot of things we don't know.
Well, there's a lot of gray
Change,
area.
yeah, it's a lot of gray.
A lot of gray.
A lot of things we question too.
Absolutely.
Ms. Leslie Durham.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
There's no H,
Huh?
no H.
Durham?
D-U-R-M.
Okay,
I'll just forward the email to all of you.
Okay.
Okay, Fritz. Okay, the last one is a video, and in all fairness, we asked that public comments are 3 minutes, and I was told this one is a little over 6 minutes, so we need to cut it off at 3 minutes and let's keep it fair, okay? You guys, all right.
Yeah, would you start telling me?
Good evening, board members. This is Laura Heflin again. I'm still very concerned about the spread of COVID, especially now with the Omicron variant. The last data I saw from Randolph County Health Department was that we were slightly over 20% positive in our county, which is the highest I have ever seen it. I'm concerned about several things. As far as letting the community and parents know about exposures in a timely manner. I know at my school there were some positive exposures in the building on Friday, and yet we have not received a single phone call, and it's now Sunday evening, about there being a positive case at our school, and I'm pretty sure there was multiple cases. So I don't know if there are some changes with signing up with that vendor for contact tracing, but it's kind of alarming that students were exposed and should be quarantining and might not have even been notified this whole weekend. I'm also alarmed that I cannot find the COVID data for our school system. It used to be available on the Randolph County webpage, and now it is gone. I went to my school homepage where we had a link to it, and it does not work anymore. So I'm really wondering why that information is not being made available to the public. The main reason for my video tonight is that the state has updated their Strong Schools Toolkit. I really hope that Dr. Gainey and all of the board members have taken a look at that And if not, that you will look at it tonight before you make any decisions about masks or other policies for the school system. There is a whole section on masks in the updated toolkit with an updated science brief. So I know some members like Mr. Burgess have questioned the science about wearing masks, and so there's a science brief. You can click on the link and it pulls up all these studies and all this data showing that communities wearing masks helps stop the spread. And with this highly contagious Omicron variant, if your goal is to keep students in school and in-person learning, then I really think you need to think very carefully about the mask policy. Put the politics aside and really put the safety of the students and staff at the front of your mind. In the updated toolkit, you will see that not only the CDC and the
Can we watch the rest?
I'm just gonna cut it off at 3 in all fairness to you. I mean, it's,
Will it be available online?
no, we're just gonna, it's,
Your policy is that public speakers have 3 minutes. You know, if a person wants more than 3 minutes, they can come multiple times, but it's the only way to administer the policy.
I'm just trying to be fair, and one time, you know, I cut you off before, and, you know, I did one time, but I'm just, yeah, I know, but I tried to be fair. I mean,
Hey, listen, I think it's an education thing, and I think the problem is we're not listening to each other. I would love to listen to her. I would love to listen to her. I would love to have a conversation, but obviously I can't with video. I tried that one time.
Hey, Edward, you call her, she'll talk to you.
Oh, she will?
Yes, she will.
Okay,
She will.
I'll do that.
okay.
My wife.
That concludes public comments tonight. This time I need a motion to adopt the meeting agenda.
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, at this time, we'll go with Dr. Gainey for some information items.
Okay, board members have 8 gifts to present as information, and then I have a big gift later in the agenda to present as an action item, the way our board policy reads. So the first gift is to Liberty Elementary School. Received an email on December 13, $150 gift card from the Liberty Branch of State Employees Credit Union. The use is unrestricted, and I accepted this gift on December 14. It is an information item due to being $5,000 or less due to board policy 8220. The next gift was Northeastern Randolph Middle School. On the 9th of December, Anthony Grosh sent me an email. This was a $500 gift to his school from Destination Heaven Ministry to be used for a school student advocate program. I accepted this gift on December 10th. It's an information item due to it being less than $5,000 or less per board policy 8220. I also have a gift. Another gift came in from Northeastern Randolph Middle School, Anthony Grosh, principal of the school, from Modern Women of the World.
It's part of Women of America, by the way. Yeah.
Oh,
If I were to
okay.
check for $1,000, I'd like to get credit for it. So,
That's
okay.
Modern Women of America. It came to the principal on the 17th of December, and the amount of $1,000, and it's to be used for student school needs. And I accept this gift on the 20th of December, and it's an information item due to being $5,000 or less per board policy 8220. The next gift is Ramsey Elementary School. And this gift came to me on the 10th of December from Angela Harris, principal of the school. This is a $150 gift from Liberty Branch of State Employees Credit Union, unrestricted, so it will be used, has flexibility for its use. This gift was accepted on December 10. Information item due to being $5,000 or less. Next gift is Randall Elementary School. received sent to me on the 13th of December from Ashley Barr, principal of the school from New Salem United Methodist Church, the amount of $1,150. The gift was given to the school for non-specific student needs such as food, clothing, utilities, and gifts. I accepted this gift on December 14th, and again, this information due to being $5,000 or less. Random Middle, gift received on the 14th of December, $150 gift card from Random Branch of State Employees Credit Union, unrestricted use. I accepted this gift on behalf of the school system on the 14th of December. And then we have 3 gifts I put on one page because they came on the same time on 13th of December from Ginger Christ, principal of Trinity Elementary School, Andrew and Vicki Butcher, $100 to be used on playground updates. Tim and James Butcher, $100 to be used on playground updates. And then Trinity Memorial United Methodist Church, $150 to be used on playground updates. And these were all accepted on the 14th of December. And individually, they were not more than $5,000, so they were information items. And then finally, we received a gift early last week on the 3rd of January to the school system from Star Pet, the amount of $500. Use is unrestricted, so we have flexibility what we will use it on. Todd Lowe will figure what to use it on in our financial operations, but I accepted this gift on the 3rd of January on behalf of the school system due to being $5,000 or less. So board members, that concludes all of the gifts and information. You should have heard eight different presentations, and there is a big gift to Trinity Elementary coming on action because of board policy requirements, so I'll share that one later on the agenda. Sorry, Mr. Burgess. I meant to call you because I didn't know, it didn't sound, I wasn't sure it was the right thing, but I didn't know it was 2 different organizations. Yeah.
Don't get Mr. Burke in trouble.
No, just don't ever let it happen again.
Put your name on.
All right, Kathy.
Good evening, board members. Tonight I bring you a grant that Providence Grove High School received from Randolph Electric Bright Ideas program in the amount of $750. The grant was received on December the 9th and will be used to fund robotics and competition for JROTC students at Providence Grove High School. Colonel Warboys was the responsible teacher who submitted this grant request. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy, and board members, as you recall, we deal, that same policy as grants and gifts, so that falls under 8220. Thank you, Kathy.
Good, Todd Lowe.
Good evening, board members. So this evening I have our monthly list of contracts that are more than $50,000. That's per board policy 6420. So this evening we have Brady Training Service Incorporated, HVAC upgrade at Wheatmore Middle School. That's $113,431. You did not have to approve this one because it falls under construction repair, so there's a $500,000 threshold there, so that's why it's some information behind it. And then the second one is Atlas Greenhouse, and that's for the greenhouse at Trinity High School, $87,938.10.
Is that greenhouse up?
No, it'll be, I think Kathy Spring we're talking, putting up, and then we have something on the agenda tonight for naming it. So we're moving along. David and Larry, Randy Wilson and Kathy have been following this project for a while. We're excited about it, so it's going to be good for Trinity High School.
All right, good. All right, so second quarter update. So tonight, I want to give you a state budget overview. We talked a little bit about it, but I'll give you a little bit more detail tonight, and then we'll look at our state allotment, and we'll compare this year's, I'll call it initial allotments, even though typically we get our initial allotments in July or August this year, quite a bit later, but we'll compare initial to initial this year to last year. We'll talk about that a little bit, and then we'll look at Three funds, current expense, capital outlay, school nutrition on expenses and revenues. We always take a check on our charter school enrollment, cash balances, and areas to watch. All right, so if we start with the state budget, as you know, on November 18th, the governor signed the budget into law. And then we received updated allotments based on that budget on December the 6th. So about four of the biggest things that I considered in the budget: pay increases for all classifications of employees. And then within that, $13 per hour minimum wage requirement. And then, as you know, multiple bonuses from state and federal funds that we'll talk about a little bit. And then there were a few new allotment categories for us. It's kind of a fluid situation. DPI continues to provide us updated guidance related to the budget requirements. As you can expect, there's a lot of different employment situations throughout all school systems in the state. And DPI's guidance and Q&As don't always address everything. So there's a lot of back and forth there in trying to figure out what we really need to do. So we'll be continuing to work on that in the weeks and months to come. All right. So we'll talk about the salary increases. Teachers and instructional support, they're receiving an average of 2.5% this year. But the range, depending on where you're at on the scale, what step you're on, the range is 1.3% to 5.4%. The assistant principal schedule is tied to the teacher and instructional support schedules. So they'll receive an increase that's consistent with that teacher schedule. And keep in mind that each step on the assistant principal schedule is 19% higher than that step on the teacher schedule. So that's how they build and that's how they're tied together. But they'll receive that same increase on average of 2.5% and then that same range also. For principals, if you remember, principal salaries are based on ADM at their school and then then growth. So you have three columns on that schedule: growth not met, growth met, growth exceeded, and then several levels for ADM. Basically, each step was increased 2.5%. Principals are once again held harmless on the growth. So we're still using those 3 years right there, 16, 17, 17, 18, 18, 19, for that growth score window. In classified and central office, there's the 2.5% increase or the $13 per hour, whichever is greater. So basically what that came down to, what that looked like was if you made an hourly rate or a salary that equaled $12.69 or more, then you got a 2.5% increase because that was the better of the two. If you were at $12.68 or less, you got the $13 an hour. Just one quick note on this. This is a good thing for our employees, and then you see the next bullet going to $15 an hour or 2.5% again next year. It's a good thing for employees, but one negative is it does cause some salary compression. By this time next year, when everybody's at $15 an hour for a minimum, our classified staff, probably at least 85% of our classified staff will all make the same amount of money, regardless of how long you've been here. So that's one of the drawbacks there. And you may hear some rumblings about that as we move through the next year or so. Once again, it's good that we're getting some wages up, some of the lower wages up, but it is compressing the schedules. And like I said, I predict about 85% of our classified staff will all make the same amount of money next year. So just keep that in mind. Okay, bonuses. We have quite a few of them. And just real quickly, there's a $300 teacher and instructional support bonus. Then you've got the $1,500 bonus or the $1,000 bonus based on what you're earning. Less than $75,000, $1,500, $75,000 or more is $1,000. And then there's a training bonus for any teacher or instructional support position that's completed COVID training since March the 12th, I believe. of 2020 up until January 1. And then there's a flat $1,800 for principals for a bonus. And then there are CTE and AP certification and test score bonuses at $25 or $50 per student. And those have been in the budget before, so, but everything else is new from there on up.
The $1,000 for COVID-related training, that's in addition to the other two above it?
It is. So if we just take, if we take a teacher, and look at a teacher will get, basically, a teacher will be eligible for $2,800, $300, another $1,500, and then another $1,000.
A classroom teacher?
Unless the teachers,
Classified teacher.
unless the teacher's over 75.
Yeah, but I don't think we're gonna have any of those situations, but yes, but assuming they're under, which the majority are, that there's, so yeah, those are all layered. For example, a principal is gonna be eligible for the $1,000, $75,000 bonus, and then they'll get $1,800 also. Yeah. And then one more item there, and there's more to be determined on this one. We haven't received much information, but there's a new supplement, will be a state-funded supplement for teachers. I'm not sure teachers and instructional support. I don't have the details on it yet. I don't have a timeline from DPI, but that is also in the budget. And it's said to be recurring. You know, it's not a bonus, it's a supplement.
How much is that?
Well, don't lock me into this number, but I saw a spreadsheet that it was for us, it was $934. And what it is, this was actually, Dr. Gaynor referred to this in the work session. So this is a supplement for all school systems except maybe about 4 of the larger systems that have, higher supplements, more local money. I know Wake and Guilford, I think in Charlotte, maybe, and there seems like there's one other.
I think it was, what I heard, Wake, Charlotte Mac, I think Winston-Salem, Forsyth, and Guilford. I'm not sure, because typically the big 5 are those 4 in Durham. I'm not sure if Durham was in the mix of not getting included.
There could have been some more, but they did not get this. This is supposed to help level the playing field a little bit on local supplements from district to district.
And this is just certified teachers?
I'm not sure yet, Fred, because we just don't really have, all I've seen really is one spreadsheet, so they haven't given us a Q&A yet on it, and a timeline for implementation or anything like that. So I don't really want to say, other than the spreadsheet said teachers, but I don't know. It could very well be teachers and instructional support, because that's usually the terminology they use.
But we don't have any local teachers then, right now?
No, but what we have is teachers, and this is what the action item is going to be about. We have teachers that are not in state funded positions, that are in federal funded.
Okay.
And that's why we're bringing you some action items tonight, or an action item.
Okay.
So we'll get to that on what you're thinking, I think is,
How much does it cost us?
Yeah, we'll talk about that a little bit later. And like I said, I don't know how that will impact this supplement payment. I know how it's going to impact the bonus system, so when we talk about bonuses in the action item, yeah.
we're bringing you everything tonight on the action item that's not, so we can cover everybody, not just the state paid, because those items, the state says state paid only, and we can't leave, somebody's a federal funded position out, or even if they were a locally funded position.
Right.
Okay.
But we're not going to, I guess, we're not going to.
Yeah, I understand.
Okay, and so then, like I said, we have a few new allotments. So let me explain these a little bit. It can be a little misleading. So there's a new allotment for kindergarten through 5th grade enhancement program teachers, or what we call BEP teachers. But those aren't 35 new positions, because we've been getting these positions 25% of the time for the last 4 years. And so now what they've done is they've taken those positions out of the 001 teacher allotment and made a separate allotment. So those aren't extra positions. They're just in a separate category that's specifically for BEP teachers, okay? Now, the next allotment, school psychologists, they've done a little bit of the same thing. They've created an allotment just for school psychologists. For this year, we have 4.5 positions there. But 3 of those positions, like the program above it, 3 of those positions came from our 007 allotment, but we did net 1 additional position. So that was, I guess, an agenda for the state budget to increase school psychologists a little bit. So we did come out 1 to the good on the school psychologists, but the other 3.5 came from our 007 allotment. And of course, those can only be used for school psychologists, or you can convert that position into money, and it can be used for a contract psychologist. And then the last one is digital learning. This is a grant that Sheena applied for and that we received, $41,650 for this year. And that's going to be used for some makerspace initiatives, specifically at the high school, including the early college. Okay, so I wanted to share with you a timeline for all these payroll items. So for January, we're going to get the new salaries put in the system. Actually, we've almost finished that. My staff's been working very hard with that, and it's over the break, Christmas break also. So we've almost finished getting the new salaries and new hourly rates in the system. We're required to pay the $300 bonus. We're required to pay the $1,500 or the $1,000 bonus in January. We're required to pay the $1,000 COVID-related training bonus, and we're required to pay the $1,800 bonus for principals. As it stands now, just a tremendous amount of work, and it is. We're going to be working. I don't say around the clock, but we're going to be working a lot of extra hours to get this implemented, which, it's a little concerning, but we'll get it done. As of now, the CT and AP bonuses that I mentioned, the $25 or the $50 per student based on credentials and test scores, planning to do those in February unless something changes, and I see that we're required to do them in January. What I have seen so far is we can do them in January or February. So, but if it changes and it has to be pushed to January, we'll get those in there too. And then probably one of the biggest items is the salary increases are effective or retro back to July 1. So now we have 6 months of retro pay that we have to pay. That's going to be one of the biggest tasks for us in the budget. So we have until the end of March to do that, and we're going to need all that time. It's going to take quite a bit of work up to do that because there's, as you can imagine, that's 6 months of retro pay that we have to go back and compare what 2,300 employees were paid for those 5 or 6 months, depending on if you're a 10 or 11 month person or a 12-month employee, and then pay the differential. So that is scheduled to be paid in on the March 30th payday.
If we had someone that left during that time, what are you doing there?
Yeah.
What are we required to do?
Well, I'll have to look at all, and I've read through the Q&As, but I've been reading through Q&As on bonuses and salary increases. So there is something that's said in there about employees that are no longer employed, and I'll just have to I'm not sure. I don't want to say at this point without, okay. I can probably find it when I go back to my seat.
I see a lot of problems there.
There's a tremendous amount of problems.
Yeah, both ways, yeah, I understand.
Well, also with employees changing districts also.
Yeah.
Because it's not, it's not going to be easy. It's not a cookie cutter situation to where you plug in a formula and it works for everybody. There's a lot of, and that goes for the bonuses too. There's a lot of detailed work that'll go into the bonuses. Unfortunately, we can't just write a program and it pays everybody. It's just, we end up looking at a lot of, in a sense, almost every single person in the school system to say, okay, this is what you should be receiving, whether it be a bonus or salary increase or retro pay. So. So just one real quick, and I won't go over all of these. This is the comparison between what I will call initial allotments this year versus initial allotments last year. Keep in mind that these are not all state programs. That there are some other state programs that will get the funding for later on, so they're not listed here. But if you look, the first column is last year, second column is this year, and at the bottom, if you scroll up just a little bit, Sheena, just to start with, I put the note down there. Last year's allotments were based on 15,817 students. This year's allotments are based on 15,307. So that's 510 students less. So that's a considerable amount of students that the funding is based on. So when we look at, when you see some of these negatives on the right-hand side, that's the cause of most of that. But if you look at the classroom teacher positions, that 50.5, remember, if you come down a few lines into 004, 35 of those positions went back into that position. So we still lost some based on ADM, but 35 of them went into a new allotment. But you can see classroom teachers, central office administration, a lot of times where you'll see increases is would be for salaries and benefits increasing. So if you think about it from the standpoint of, you know, on one hand, what's working in our favor in terms of the allotment numbers, salaries and benefits going up increases our allotment, but in the ADM, 510 students less works against our allotment. So as it nets out to what you see in that right-hand column. Some of the ones that stand out, the low wealth of 31. Let me explain that one a little bit. It shows on the sheet 177,282 for the increase. If you heard Dr. Gainey in the work session, he referenced low wealth, and he said our low wealth this year went up $700 and some thousand. And actually it did, because at the time, I'm trying to compare apples to apples. At the time, in the beginning of the year last year, when I had used that 6,884 number for low wealth, that was before they pulled some of our $500 some thousand of our money out of our low wealth allotment and put it into a coronavirus relief low wealth fund. Okay, so now we've got that money back in our original low wealth allotment and 177,000 more, basically.
So Todd, one of the things, what Todd's referencing is 500,000 that was pulled out of low wealth. We lost a lot of flexibility on that 500,000 last year, because when it got pulled, then another set of rules got applied to that for 2021.
Yeah,
So we weathered that, but we didn't like that when that happened, because we also got restricted.
At the time I gave you the report last year on the comparison, we had $6.8 million sitting there, and then a few weeks later they pulled it out, and I was like, wait a minute, what happened? And DPI explained, oh, we were supposed to pull that money out and put it into the CRF, Coronavirus Relief Fund, under a low wealth allotment, which then, of course, was to be spent on COVID-related expenses. Well, now we have it back in our original low wealth allotment, where we have more flexibility to pay teacher salaries, to pay instructional support salaries, technology expenses. So anyway, so that's a good thing, but that's why there's a difference between that 177 number and the number that Dr. Gainey referenced in the work session. The EC number jumps out at you. Don't be too alarmed by that. That is based on head count. So yes, $649,000 less is a lot, but what's going to help us there is that we did carry over quite a bit of money in Program 60, which is the EC supplemental funding. And so that will help, that will definitely help cushion that blow of the EC. And you can see, like I said, you can see, and then I just did a little summary at the bottom, 17 less position, 18 less months of employment, and a net of $1,980, so fairly flat there.
And board members, remember, when Todd started with those allotments, 2021, right at the bottom, it's at 15,817, and then 15,307. DPI is notoriously high on the number they send out resources on. And so just to give you a point of reference, they were saying 15,307. Our trends led us to only allot on 14,916, because if you allot, it doesn't matter what they tell you they think you're gonna have. If you don't make their number, then you have to reorganize into the school year and start giving back positions and stuff. So I don't know why that continues to be. It's been going on even in the last system I was in. We were always projected by DPI much higher than the reality of what was going to be there. So we watched, that was something that when we were asked today by Mr. McDowell, I think it was, about the energy projections, watching trends. That's something we watch a lot with student enrollment when we're getting ready for, I guess in February, we'll be working on the formulas for allotting for 22-23.
And we were held harmless this year again on that allotted ADM. They will not pull back funding if we don't hit that mark.
For this year.
I think we're, Dr. Gandy, I think we're right around 15,000, aren't we, right now?
15,000. We locked in at 15,003 students. Last year, we locked in at 15,049. If I remember right, the years prior, we were down in the high 14s. So we've had a little bit of an uptick, if I remember right, from the previous.
Is that what several years ago, we came in high one time and had to, like at the early first of the year, remember several years ago? And you kind of backed it down like after that?
We probably came in low.
So what?
Yeah.
I thought we had to give something back years ago.
Well, we always, we have had to give back, but what we've had to give back, we don't put out there. That's the deal, what we do in February and when we give allotments out to the schools. We want to make sure what we're holding back, like when I said we only allotted on 14,916, we don't want anything we'd have to give back.
It may have been way back in the day we had to do that one time. So
We start pulling teachers out of classrooms and having to reorg, that's when it gets, and we've been able to prevent that.
There was one year, years ago, there was a state budget freeze and we had to give back.
They switched it or something.
We gave
didn't
back
they?
money 3 different times.
That's what I was thinking during the year. That's what I was talking
That was
about.
before my time.
Yeah,
But yeah,
it was.
All right, so we'll look at the current expense budget, and remember, we're looking at funds 2 and 8 combined. So the budget expense this year is $25,596,356. Second quarter expenses, $11,423,632, or 45% of our budget. Brings our year-to-date expense, July through December, at $16,046,204, or 63% of the budget. But once again, just like every year, remember, second quarter is high because our November local supplements are paid out. So we're right about where we should be right there. We talked about energy a little bit in the work session, and that's something that we definitely always keep an eye on. Not that we can control it, because it's more or less controlled by the weather, but second quarter energy expense, $776,000, 21% of our budget. So if you always think about the bar being 25% every quarter, 21% of our budget. Year-to-date energy comes in at $1.5 million, which is 40% of our budget, which once again is right about where we need to be, because if you think about it, the December, January, February expense, and I should say the December, January, February months, and the expense is always a month later when it hits our books by the time we get our bill and we pay it. So those were typically our 3 highest months because of the cold weather. So the next quarterly update, you're going to see some higher numbers there, but then after that, March, April, and maybe sometimes part of May is some of our lowest months, just once again based on the weather. So I feel pretty good about where we are with our energy budget. Year-to-date charter school payments, $807,938 so far, 46% of our budget, so that's about where we should be. Going back to the work session, Dr. Ganey put a $1.9 million number on the board. That's what we will pay out, or close to it by year end. He takes the current payment and multiplies it times the number of kids for the whole year. I'm just showing you right now what we've paid out so far. On the revenue side, once again, the same number, $25.5 million budget revenue. Second quarter revenue, $6.2 million, right at 25% of the budget. Year-to-date revenue is a little over $12 million, which is 47% of the budget, not quite where we need to be, mainly because of the fines and forfeitures. In November, we talked about this a little bit. At that time, I did not want to change what we were budgeting for fines and forfeitures, but I told you that we probably would come in less than that by the time the year was up. So year-to-date fines and forfeitures are $494,000, which is 43% of our budget, so not quite where we want to be. What would help us out a little bit, all the additional federal ESSER programs that pay indirect costs, there'll be some additional indirect cost revenue coming into our local budget because of that. And that'll be in place for the next couple of years. So that will help offset some of that fines and forfeitures if we do end up the year a little bit under budget on revenue. Capital outlay budget, originally $3,109,071, but remember in October you approved the $1.4 million transfer from current expense fund balance to the capital outlay budget to take care of some HVAC needs and some other, we did some delivery truck replacements. So basically, after that transfer, the adjusted budget is $4,509,071. Second quarter expense, $703,000 or 16%. Now, year-to-date expense is $1,937,749, 43% of the budget. That's a little high, but typically we knock out some of those projects in the summertime, in July and August, so that's what bumps it up. So far we have done some HVAC work and we've done some roofing repairs, and we did purchase 2 delivery trucks, 2 used trucks to help with our aging vehicles. Second quarter revenue, $2,033,562, 45% of the budget, and that's the reason why that second quarter is so high. That's when the transfer took place, so that's why that number's so high. Year-to-date revenue stands at $2,574,352, 57% of the budget. And the final fund that we'll look at, child nutrition, $10,627,500. Second quarter expense, $2,728,000, 26% of the budget. Year-to-date expense, $3.9 million, only 37% of the budget. On the other side, you got the revenue, $2,395,000 in the second quarter, and year-to-date revenue is $4,495,241. So if you just, and the reason I'm showing it like this is because child nutrition, the way they do their budget, the $10 million, they're not going to spend $10 million. There's always a pretty big cushion in their budget. They don't spend that much, they don't receive that much revenue. But if you want to look at it, comparing revenue to expense, the revenues right now exceed expenses by $569,568, which is good. They're in good shape right now. A legislative change this year, the child nutrition program, school nutrition program pays us indirect costs. They were paying the full percentage. This year it was 12.42%, but when the budget was passed, legislation capped what they would pay us at 8%. So we are going to lose an estimated $200,000 in revenue coming from the school nutrition program. So I don't necessarily agree with that legislation, but that's the cards that we've been dealt, and that's how it will impact us.
And I think that legislation was pushed through to address some issues somewhere in the state, and I'm like, oh, I don't agree with that, because it's, those indirect costs are very important to us in our budget, and it is, I'm not really sure I understood the rationale, other than there were some issues in the state with some percentages that maybe were happening with indirect costs being charged to child nutrition in our school system.
At the end of the day, the school nutrition fund is basically our responsibility, and if they're if they can't meet their expenses, they can't meet their bills, it does fall on us locally. And that's why, the main reason I don't agree with that legislation, because we're going to work with our school nutrition programs. They're part of the school system, and we're going to work with them. We're going to make them successful. And, you know, for just to have a across-the-board legislation that impacts all school systems, regardless of what's going on, you know, in your system, I just don't agree with that. But like I said, we have to abide by it. Okay, charter school enrollment. So last year we ended the year with 1,289 students, 16 charters, 2 virtual charters. So this year, our current enrollment is 1,334, and once again, now we have 16 charters and 2 virtuals reporting, which I feel like 16 is all that's out there that's reporting at this point, or that will report. So that's a current increase of 45 students. It's dropped down a little bit from in the past couple months. It was a little higher than that, but at the beginning of the year, especially with UR charge, just because there's so many kids, it takes a little while to figure out, okay, are these our kids or they're actual city's kids, and that's why it fluctuates a little bit. Not to mention that there could be some kids that don't enroll or come out of the charter. So right now, 1,071, which is 33 more than last year. The virtual academies stand at 62, those 2 schools combined. That's +4 over last year. And then our average cost right now is $1,479 for the regular charter, and then like Dr. Gaines said in the work session, the $790 has stayed the same for the virtual. Year-to-date expense, once again, through the end of December, is $807,930. Cash balances. Our current expense balance came down a little bit, once again, because we paid out our supplements in November. Still stands at a healthy $4.3 million. That'll go up during the rest of the second half of the year. Capital outlay, $1.4 million, AT tax, $2.1. The AT tax, I think they've received the majority of their tax revenue. I want to say September maybe is the month that most of that hits. They'll still receive some more throughout the year, but not a lot, I don't think. Child nutrition stands at $4.3 million, and once again, it does fluctuate throughout the year based on revenues and expenses. 4 areas that we're going to keep an eye on, and I will give you an update on the transportation. If you remember, we did our transportation allotment in two segments, I should say. We get one to start the year, and then we get one usually it's around November, late November. It was a little bit later this year. We actually received it last week, and it's pretty good. It's going to be about 200,000 more than last year, which is once again mainly because of salaries and benefits. But that's good. What they're doing is because of COVID and have the impact on yellow buses. They're holding us harmless to the 1920 funding formula plus any salary increases and benefit increases and factoring in your ADM. But they're not changing the formula because I don't think they've had reliable data for the last 2 years to base their transportation funding formulas on. So right now, I guess that's a pretty good thing for us. So anyway, like I said, it's about 200,000 more than last year, so that's good. Of course, I mentioned the energy expense during the winter. We'll have a few high months coming up unless the weather turns mild. And then the charter school enrollment, I feel like will be pretty consistent. And then we talked about the state's funded supplements for teachers. More information. I'll have more information on that. And once again, that'll have to be paid out at some point this year. Looks like at this point it's going to be later on in the spring. Any questions? I know that was a little lengthy, but there was quite a bit to cover. Any questions on that?
Board members, Todd's been working, the staff been working hard. We did get a lot of stuff that came out of that state budget that was, when that state budget hit, as typical, the storylines come out, but then the details come later. So feel like we're in a good spot to have everything organized where it is, but we will start sending out additional communications as needed to make people aware of what's coming.
I'm planning to send out to all staff members a timeline, because we're starting to get some questions. I'd sent out some emails, and I think y'all have received those emails too, back before Christmas. Just at that time, giving an update on where we were. Now I can give some more definitive answers, and so that staff will know what to expect, which a lot of it's going to come this month. All right, thank you.
Thanks, Scott. Okay, Ms. Ashworth.
Good evening, board members. Tonight I bring to you the second quarter student assignment report. And I'm just going to go from left to right to talk about the columns, if that's okay. First column represents the capacity at each of our schools. The second column, you can see there the enrollment. The enrollment number there reflects student enrollment as of Friday, December the 17th. Also note that there's 6 schools there. Enrollment also reflects the preschool numbers. Third column is our capacity. Remember, per our procedure, any student or any school that is 95% or higher in capacity, any reassignment, new reassignment admissions or reassignments are denied during that process. So currently, the school that's above 95% is Randleman High School, sitting at 96%. And then we also highlight the ones that are at 90 to 94 just because they're on our watch list, and that would be Barstow Elementary as well as Grace Chapel. You'll also see highlighted in red is the Virtual Academy. But just as a reminder, that's an application process, so once that application is full, it's full. So just wanted to bring that to your attention as well. That's why that one is in red. The fourth column there represents the number of mobile units per school. Would like to tell you there was an error. It's been fixed on the version online, but if you happen to print prior to the correction, the total mobile units we have is still at 80. When I added the superscript at Trinity Middle School to represent that 4 are sitting on the campus of Braxton Craven, it didn't tally for the total. So yours may have said 76 if you printed it prior to my correction. So it should be 80 to include those 4. That's not a change from the last report that we brought to you. And then continuing over, the reassignments with a plus, those are the number of students at those schools or at the respective school that is there due to asking and being approved for a reassignment. The next column represents the number of students that are domiciled at that school that are attending another school in our school system. The next column represents the number of students that we have released to another school system. And remember, those are LEAs. So like students that we were talking about earlier for the charter school are not included in those numbers. There's 2 other LEAs. They're their own LEA, but they don't have boundaries, let me correct that. So it's to those that have school assignment boundaries. The next to last column are admissions, so those are the number of students attending that school that are not currently domiciled in Randolph County. And then the last column represents the net gain or loss per school. So if you go all the way down to the bottom, currently for our school system, we are at a net loss of 42. That number was 50 at the end of the year last year. And when I brought this report to you in first quarter, it was at 49. So we have gained a little bit there. Any questions about the second quarter reassignment report?
As a point of reference, board members, that number, negative 42, was negative 153 in the first quarter of 14-15 when we first started doing this report, or somewhere around the time one of the early reports, may not have been the first one. But first quarter of 14-15, we lost 153 more students than we gained through admissions. Definitely got that pulled back under control.
Any reason in particular when Randleman Elementary had such a huge,
Had a huge what?
I may have read it wrong, I thought it was Randleman Elementary.
Yeah, they did.
It is Randleman Elementary.
Yeah, it said 92 students, so is there anything you point to for that, or is it just?
I would have to go back and look. My gut reaction to you would be that a lot of those are due to childcare. A lot of the approvals have been based on childcare, whether it's within our system or the releases, because they also are very close to Asheville City in that area, and a lot of parents ask because they're going into the city to work for employment.
Yeah, So it was 70, I guess, was the reassignments of that, I think. Yeah.
So we've kept them in our school system, yes, sir, but they're at a different school than Randall Elementary.
And I know last time we looked at this last quarter, we talked about Franklinville,
Yeah.
and it's still down a little bit. Farmer, both farmer and
That's
Franklinville.
something I'm sitting here talking about, you know,
Yeah.
me and Dr. Gaines, we've had this discussion. It's, people just ain't having kids out of farmer, but, I would like to go back and see, cause I always said back, this is way before your time, my time here. I always said when they built Southmont, they didn't redistrict that right. Cause it's always been, since they built, you know, farmer was like almost 700 kids at one time. And they built Southmont to relieve that. And it's always seems like since they did that, Southmont was always quite a bit higher than Farmer. I mean, you're looking at Farmer at 44% capacity, then you're looking at Southmont saying at 75% capacity. So, you know, that tell you something's not equaling out somewhere. And I think it's always been like that since.
I bet it was 500 or so there when your daughter went, probably, wasn't it? I mean, it seemed like it was a lot more, cause.
I know when my son went there, that's when it was way up over 600. I mean, that's when we had like 6 trailers out there back then.
Wasn't Southmont built to alleviate the
Yes.
farmers? That's what I thought.
I just always thought it wasn't split quite right. But once it was built, Southmont's population was up and farmers was down.
Kinda did the same thing, I know it's out in the country, it's hard, but.
It is, I mean, you know, more of your population's gonna be closer to this
Yeah,
way.
you are in middle, I mean, that wasn't, probably could've did a little better there way back in the day too.
Plus charter schools, have elementary schools here.
Now, the
Yeah.
charter school did hit farmer
They
hard.
hit farmer hard.
It hit Franklinville hard. If I remember right, a couple of years ago, when the K-4 went in, Franklinville lost a good number.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I think we're gonna get some more kids out that way, basically. Need to get snow.
They sell more farm money out there.
Okay, so we need a motion to approve the consent items.
So,
You have a second?
I do have one question. Policy 4231. Elizabeth, that last, which I think we had a public comment about, that last sentence, or that last paragraph, is that saying that the superintendent is authorized to go mandatory coverage if it is required by law?
Yes, if it becomes required by law, you wouldn't have to have a separate meeting.
Okay, but he can only do that if it is required by law?
Correct.
Okay.
As of now, it's not required by law, as you know.
If it's written law.
Legislative law.
Legislative, I mean,
Yeah.
Law.
yeah. Not toolkit law, real law. I mean,
You know, if that circumstance arises, we'll analyze it
Okay.
and provide an
all right,
opinion.
okay.
Okay, so we need a motion to approve the consent items. So moved. You have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we're going to go from the action items to Dr. Gaines.
Okay, board members, I want to bring to you a gift that has to have board approval. On the 13th of December, I received an email from Ginger Crites regarding a gift by Sarah Hill, the amount of $10,000 to Trinity Elementary School, and it was designated for updates to the playground. It's being presented to you for final approval per board policy 8220. I accepted this on the 14th with the when I received it, but same token, it needs action by you as a board member to fully accept it so she can use it at the school.
Any idea how close they're getting?
Um,
It's a big chunk.
they're getting, I want to say they're.
It's over 30,000 what they have to have.
Yeah, it's,
So
It's-
that helps a lot.
It's unreal, it's unreal. I know back
30,000,
when my daughter
30,000.
was at Farmer, we replaced that one out there. And I don't think the playground is what it once was. I mean, it's like $80-something thousand. That's been 15 years.
Elementary schools, there's 2 or 3 that had a, where'd they get they had a grant one time, remember that? There's some kind of hospital funds or something, a grant, I don't know. I guess that's when everybody
I
had.
remember one kid broke a little plastic seat out there, and it was like $400
Oh,
a place.
yeah.
Well, they sure need some help, one over there.
It's
That is,
has
it's,
to be certain
it's duct tape on.
guidelines.
Got the ADA and everything else. So I'll make the motion.
All right, need a motion to approve the gift from Sarah Hill to Trinity Elementary in the amount of $10,000. Have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. All right, Todd Lowe.
Okay, before I start, going back to Fred's question about if you were asking if the employee resigned. And I want to be careful to answer that, because it's different from in the past, because in the past, anytime if we got a budget that was late and we had to, say it was October, we had to go back and do retro for a month or 2. We did retro pay those employees, even if they had, separated from us or resigned or retired. I was looking at the Q&A, you have to be employed on December 31st to receive the retro pay. So it's a little, and we'll talk about it a little bit in this memo, but it's a little, the legislation this year is a little contradicting. Salaries went into effect January 1. We were told not to use new salaries before January 1, not to use them in December yet, when the budget was passed. So they're effective January 1, but there's retro, but then there's some that there's no retro on, like substitutes. We'll talk about that in a second. But yeah, the guys from DPI at this point is saying that you have to be employed on December 31st to get the retro. So if we could have employees that worked, during the fall, and if they left us, even though they made these salaries effective July 1, they're not going to get retro because they're not employed anymore.
And same thing, also on transfers too, so we're, if you went to another LEA.
Well, no, if you're still, if there hasn't not been a break in service, so
Yeah.
there's going to be a lot of communication back and forth between school systems to figure out, hey, what was your rate of pay? To confirm with the finance officer in their system what your rate of pay was so that we can do the retro. But yeah, if there hasn't been a break in service, if they've just gone from one system to another, then, and with no time in between, then they will be eligible for it.
So, and someone, well, I guess it works the other way. If we receive someone during that time, but on 12/31, they were in the school system.
I read somewhere the employer on 12/31 is the one that's responsible for the retro pay.
Okay.
So, so if we think about an example, if someone came to us from Guilford and they didn't start with us until January the 4th or whatever that Monday was, the 3rd or whatever, then actually Guilford is in the retro pay.
Okay.
But if they started with us back in December, then we're going over the retro pay, and that's when I call Guilford and say, hey, I need their salary from, it's gonna be a lot of fun. Like, we have time to do that, but I need your salary from the beginning of the school year or whatever, so I can, work up with it. So that's just one example of what we'll be dealing with. And that's why we needed till March to do it, because it's not gonna be just a flip the switch and get it done. There's gonna be a lot of detailed work on that to get it done right, so we're gonna need as much time to work that out as we can. Okay, so basically, for your approval tonight, we have 5 items, and I'll explain a little bit. A couple of these items are bonuses, and the reason why there's only 2 bonuses on the list and not 4 or 5 bonuses on the list, the bonus that is $75,000 or more or less, the $1,000 to $1,500. The legislation in that bonus is for all employees regardless of funding source, okay? So no action needed. The CTE and AP bonuses we talked about, I looked at those employees, they're going to be state-funded employees. So the legislation does talk about state-funded positions. All of ours fall into that category, so no action is needed. We're fine there. Unfortunately, there's a couple bonuses that we'll get to that, and the trend seems to be for some of these pay increases and bonuses that it's for state-funded employees only. And so that's not a good trend. I don't like that wording when I see that in legislation, because it's it kind of divides our staff, because we have custodians that are paid from state funds, we have custodians that we pay from local funds. We have teachers paid from state, we have teachers paid from federal funds, and so on. We have teachers paid from AT tax money. We have all kinds of positions out there paid from a variety of funding sources. They're not all state. Now, if the state was giving us enough money to fund all the positions, it'd be something different, but of course they don't. So anyway, but like I said, I don't agree and don't understand why on this $1,000 or $15,000 or $1,500 bonus, they can say, yes, that's for everybody regardless of funding. Well, why don't you say that for all the bonuses? I mean, they know we have teachers, we have federally funded teachers, but like I said, once again, those are the cards that we're dealt. So item number one, I'll just go through this, the session law 2021-180, section 7A.10. So it called for non-certified public school employees whose salaries are supported by state funds, there's that word, that they shall receive the rate of 2.5% or $13 per hour effective retro back to July 1. So because it calls out state funds only, we're requesting that law be applied to all non-certified public school employees regardless of state funding, regardless of funding source, excuse me. And then along those same lines, in order to comply with item 1, so for substitute teachers, basically those supported with state funds, their new daily rate would be $104, going from $80 a day to $104 a day because of that $13 per hour minimum. Once again, the legislation says state funds, so we're requesting that we apply that to all non-certified substitute teachers regardless of salary funding source. That substitute rate of $104 would also apply to substitutes who sub for teacher assistants. In addition, we're requesting a $117 daily rate of pay for substitutes who have completed the effective teacher training course, and then $134 per day for those who hold a teaching license, once again, regardless of funding source. So basically, we're requesting 104, 117, and 134 as our 3 sub-rates. Item number 3, this not in the state budget, but while we were going through the list of financial items, we thought we would put the tutor rates in there. $14.70 and $22.06 have been our current tutor rates. We haven't raised those in a while. So we're asking for a 2.5% increase on tutor rates, which would take the non-certified tutor rate to $15.07 and the certified tutor rate to $22.61. And I'm going to back up 1 second to item number 2. I failed to tell you how I came up with the 117 and 134 rates. The 104 rate is based on $13 an hour times 8 hours. And we use 8 hours because that's what the state uses for their salary, their classified salary schedule. They base those salaries on 8 hours to come up with hourly rates. So I did the same thing for the 104. Going from $80 to 104 represented a 30% increase. So to make it equal, I just applied 30% to the middle rate and to the certified rate. To go from 90 to 117 and to go from 103 to 134. So then that's a 30% increase on those daily rates. Item number 4 and 5 are bonuses. Item number 4 is the Session Law 2021-180, Section 7.27A34. And this is the COVID-related training that either addresses mitigation of COVID, learning loss, or virtual learning, all related to COVID-19. So this would be $1,000 bonus for teachers and instructional support personnel. Once again, the law says whose salaries are supported by state funds. So we're asking that that same law be applied to all teachers and instructional support, regardless of funding source.
That's through 12/31.
This one, they would have had to have done training from, I want to say it's March 12th or maybe March 14th. It's that date in March of 2020 when the schools were shut down. It's training between then and January 1 of 2022. The employee, if I'm thinking correctly, Todd, the employee has to be employed January 1 of this year to receive this. So once again, if they've left us, they're not going to be eligible for this. I will tell you that they've given us an allotment for this, and I may find out more tomorrow. We have a webinar with DPI in the morning, because I heard something on the video last week that made me think maybe they've corrected this, but the allotments that went out to the school systems, when you did a quick look at your state funded teachers and instructional support, the allotment that they gave us for this bonus, for us was going to come up $214,000 short. So not only were they not giving us money to fund federal and local teachers and instructional support, they weren't even giving us enough money to fund the state ones they told us we had to pay. I heard on the radio the other week, and it's just a little news snippet, but they said that DPI was addressing or was going to use some reserve money to fill in the gap on a bonus that they did not fully fund. I'm assuming they're talking about this one, but I don't know if they are or not, but that'll probably come up in our webinar tomorrow. But I will say this, whether they increase the allotment or not, we still have, as long as y'all approve it, we still have the other teachers and instructional support from other sources to pay for. So we can use other ESSER money, and specifically for us, we would use ESSER 3 money. We'd have to write it into our plan. We'll have to amend our plan, write it into our plan to pick up the difference on these bonuses. So that applies to number 4 and number 5. Number 5 is the $300 teacher and instructor support bonus. Once again, the law says for those funded, supported by state funds, shall receive $300 bonus. So we're asking to apply that to all teachers and instructional support. And once again, we are allowed to use ESSER money to pick up those federal teachers, those AT tax teachers, and so on that are not state funded. Basically, we have to write it into the plan, but we'll do our best. If you approve this, we'll do our best for this not to impact our local budget. And once again, treat everybody fairly. I was going to say something else and it just left me, but I may think of it in a second. But are there any questions on those 5 items?
The substitute rate, is that required to get 2.5% next year or not?
Well, it will be back again at the table next year because it'll be $15 an hour. Yeah, so that'll be the greater of their raise. You'll be looking at $15 an hour for sub rates, so they'll be bumping up again. And so we'll be back here again with a similar request. Well, the positive side is hopefully this will help get some subs in the building.
So number 4 is really, we're talking about 214 employees, is that right? Number 4, are we talking about 214 employees? I heard you say 214,000.
No, that's how much, 214,000 is how much, if they don't adjust the allotment, that's how much we would be short from the allotment that they've given us to pay just the state-funded positions. They're not gonna give us any money to pay the federal teachers. But no, I did a quick calculation, and we'd be $233,000 short to pay the state-funded ones, the ones they told us to pay. So I think something happened with that allotment calculation. I don't know how they came up that short system-wide, I mean, statewide.
We gotta pay.
Yeah, but like I said, that, based on the news story, if they were talking about that bonus, which I assume they were, there may be some help coming there, but they're still not gonna give us money to cover the federal teachers.
DPI is being generous with our.
Soaping it up.
Yes, I got you. I had something important to say, and I keep staring at the paper and thinking it'll jump out at me.
Just jump back in here anytime.
I can't remember.
You've been here the whole time anyway.
Yeah.
Jump back in.
I'm gonna take next month off. But anyway,
Do we have to define it as extra money or?
I'm glad you said the word define, I just thought. That's what I was gonna say. Okay, do we have to say that again? Which ESSER money? It'll be ESSER 3 for us, because we're about to, by the end of the year, we're going to zero out our ESSER 1, we're going to zero out our ESSER 2. The bonuses came from ESSER 2. ESSER 2 is funding the Virtual Academy. That Virtual Academy cost will kick over to ESSER 3, and so we'll need to pick this up out of ESSER 3, which, like I said, but we will have to amend the budget, which I'm pretty sure a lot of school systems will be doing that across the state. And DPI saw it coming, they put it in the Q&A, hey, you can use ESSER funds to fill in the gaps. But I'm glad you said define, because I wanted to define teachers and instructional support. And this will go out to principals and all staff also. Teachers and instructional support are defined by those that are required to be paid off the teacher and instructional support certified salary schedules. So that's how we'll draw the line. So when it comes to this training bonus, when it comes to this $300 bonus, we'll have our rosters and we'll know who it applies to. And yes, there probably will be some staff members out there say, wait a minute, why I should be considered instructional support, going by DPI's definition. And truly, that hasn't changed. That's always been the definition. That's what we've always gone by. If you're paid off a teacher salary schedule, or a psychologist schedule, or an instructional support salary schedule, it's everything from teachers up to assistant principals, not including assistant principals. Once you get assistant principals, now you're on an administrative type schedule. So it's basically.
So office support is not.
No, and that's the thing, the word support, yes, we're all instructional support, but we don't qualify for this bonus.
But they do qualify for the 1,500.
The 1,500, yes, most of you classified, a lot of you classified are going to be 1,500. But so for these bonuses, you're talking about teachers, lead teachers, guidance, media, social workers, nurses are paid off of, actually nurses are paid off of teacher salaries or instructional support salary schedules. Yeah. So, but it stops right before you get to APs. So it's that group of employees in there, but not classified.
Question, on the January 28th payday,
Yes.
are you gonna have, okay, you'll have this new salary and hourly rates and their regular paycheck. Are you gonna have separate pay for these other things? Because some of them will be able, have.
Yeah, the way it'll work, it'll all be separate pay runs, but it'll all be taxed together because it's on the monthly check. And so, yes, but they will all be separate. But so a teacher's going to see their new salary. They're going to see a line item of a gross of $300, and they'll see a line item with a gross of $1,500, and they'll see a line item, as long as they did their training, they'll see a line item. So yes, it'll all be
So
separate.
there's not gonna be multiple, like deposits?
It'll be, I believe what'll happen, I'm just thinking about my online banking. I think you'll see, can't promise you, but I think there'll be different deposits on the bank statement. But here's the thing, on the employee portal where you can view your check stubs and paychecks, it'll show separate line items on there.
And you show what they're getting.
Yeah, it'll show, if they go to the employee portal, they'll be able to see every single thing, it won't be lumped together. Now, I wish it was lumped together, because that'd be a lot easier for us, but it's not, because a lot of them are coming out of different budget codes also, which is another way we gotta figure out how to, I mean, just think, in the bonus itself, we're gonna use one code to pay all the state funded ones, and then we're gonna have to use extra money to pay the other ones. So it's going to get a little confusing, but it will show separate line items on their pay stub. I can't really say, I'm thinking on the, I think on your, like if you look at your bank statement online, or you look at your online banking, I think it'll show separately too on there, but you don't get the descriptions on your, but like I said, the employee portal will show all the details. Any other questions? You need approval.
Yeah.
Okay, so this time we need a motion to approve the 2021-2022 pay rates and bonuses. You have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Motion carries. Thanks. Okay, Mr. Lincoln.
Good evening, board members. The Randolph County School System has been approached about naming the new greenhouse building at Trinity High School after Paul Guthrie. Paul Guthrie served in many roles for Randolph County and our school system, such as agricultural teacher at Trinity High School, member of the Randolph County Board of Education, member of the Trinity City Council, and member of the Archdale Trinity Chamber of Commerce. The request is to name the new greenhouse building the Paul Guthrie Greenhouse. In following with Board Policy 9300 naming facilities, the naming request was initially presented at the previous December board meeting and is being presented tonight as an action item. I'd be glad to answer any questions you may have about the naming request.
Did we ask, would anybody from his family?
Yeah, they were contacted.
They were contacted.
Yeah, and they approved it.
Yeah. I mean, I was just curious, they're probably not able to be here, are they? I mean, his wife
I don't know.
or his son, I was just curious.
They were contacted.
I know Dr. Cross is on to this.
Well, it's needed.
Or, I'm sorry, Mr. Harmon.
Yeah, it's needed.
Yeah.
It's really needed.
And they'll plan an event, if this is approved tonight, they'll plan an event.
Maybe she can come to that or something.
Yeah.
There'll be a little ribbon cutting or something. Kathy, I don't know what David's thinking, but it's something, I talked to him today too. And I think think about the fall probably.
She worked for us for a long time, probably 20 years, and then he taught here forever.
Yeah.
Really a positive impact on a lot of kids. Because he was one of those ag teachers before, I mean, he was doing it way back in the day before it was so much more popular now, but I mean, he was good, wasn't he? All right. I need a motion to name the new greenhouse at Trinity High School as the Paul Guthrie Greenhouse.
I'll make a motion.
All right, have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. That's cool.
Okay, board members, the next item on the agenda is a recommendation to revise the 2021-2022 school calendar. Due to the primary election being held on 5/17/2022, we are recommending to add a teacher workday for 5/17/2022. Number one, we expect the election to be heavily attended. Number two, if we can avoid voters being on campus while our students are in school. And then number three, we do have 7 school sites that are used for polling places. I'll be glad to answer any questions you may
We
have.
made that mistake last election. I don't think we want to do that.
And that's if it was held on 5/17.
Yeah. So if
It's been changed.
Yeah, we
if it's
may have
been
to
moved,
change
if it's
again.
moved again, what are we doing now? We have to come back and vote?
Yeah, we'll have to come back, we'll have to come back and change it if it gets moved again. Unless it goes to the summer. I don't think it, maybe, even if it comes forward, we don't,
Well, I was,
yeah, we don't,
let me go. I don't know.
we don't have the authority, we'd have to come back, we'll bring it back to you.
If it's not held on that day.
It'll be going to next school year, probably,
Okay.
August.
So the question becomes, if it was to get moved to next school year, we'll be back in to change this back to a student day and roll on, I guess. I mean, we're only bringing you this because of this event. So if for some reason it gets bumped into next school year, we will come back for.
But we're not voting that if it is not held that day, that
No, we're
not
just
canceling, just saying.
we've been told by the Board of Elections that the 17th of May, so that's all we need to go on. We revised the other, we're gonna make the fall election day will forever be a teacher work day. We first had it a couple of years ago as for big elections, but we're gonna leave that as election day moving forward, and this is just something that's popped up, and we think, we just think it's the right thing to do for that day. May not always do it in spring, but for this one, we do believe.
Mr. Burgess, that is the date on their website as of today.
Yeah.
So if it changes, we'll just bring it back up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so we need a motion to approve the revision to the 2021-2022 school calendar.
So move.
Have a second.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, board members.
Thanks.
Thank you, Dale.
I move that Randolph County Board of Education enter into closed session pursuant to North Carolina General Statute to preserve the attorney-client privilege and to discuss confidential personnel matters protected by North Carolina General Statute.
Okay, we have the motion Okay, need a motion to approve the certified personnel report.
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Need a motion to approve the classified personnel report.
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Need a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Have a second?
Sorry.
All those in favor say aye.